Shuru Kambata, CEO of DL Shah Trust for Applied Science, Technology, Arts and Philosophy. Mr. Banerjee, my colleague as a trustee of NCQM. Mr. S. Khadagare, President of NCQM. Dear ladies and gentlemen, it gives me a great pleasure and honor to welcome all of you once again to this prestigious annual event of 12th DL Shah Memorial Lecture being held today. Since last 11 years, NCQM has arranged DL Shah Memorial Lectures by eminent speakers in various fields of quality. To name some of them, I start with the first lecture, which was delivered by Mr. Suresh Lulla, Managing Director of Quimpro. Subsequently, prominent speakers like Mr. J. Sridharan, President of Aditya Birla Management Corporation Private Limited, Dr. Girdhar Gnani, General Secretary of Quality Council of India, Mr. D. Bhim Singh, Senior Vice President, Rane Brake Lining Limited, and Padma Vibhushan Dr. M.B. Athreya, Mr. K.G. Shinoy, Senior Vice President, Manufacturing, SCM, CME, Mr. Chatterjee, Senior General Manager and Head Business Excellence, Automotive and Farm Equipment Sector of Mahindra and Mahindra, Mr. Anand Sen, President TQM and Steel Business of Tata Steel Limited, Dr. Srinivas Kondlekar, Director, Kansan Institute of Asia Pacific Private Limited, Mr. Anil Kumar Sinha, Head Quality, Tata Motors Commercial Vehicle Business Unit, and the last one, that was last year, Mr. Sandeep Mahajan on Quality First to Deming Prize, Journey at L&T and ESP Business. And today, we are further privileged to have amongst us Dr. R.A. Mashelkar, who will be speaking on 10 tenets of achieving resilience through excellence in uncertain times with which the entire country and the world is passing. I'm sure that this will really benefit to all the stakeholders. These lectures are sponsored by Shri DL Shah Trust, and we would like to express our sincere thanks and gratitude and appreciation to the trustees of DL Shah Trust for the same. Fortunately, we have Dr. Noria and the colleagues amongst us, so please accept our good wishes and many, many thanks to both of you and especially to the DL Shah Trust. I'm sure, once again, all of you are fully aware about NCQM, which was established in 1985 by a group of eminent industrialists and professionals as a not-for-profit organization, with founder president being late Shri Ramkrishna Bajaj. NCQM since then has been blessed with services of eminent personalities like late Shri DL Shah himself, in whose memory the current lectures are being sponsored. Late Shri Virenbhai Shah, late Dr. K.K. Anand, late Shri Atul Bhagwati, Dr. H.M. Mehta, Dr. R.H.G. Rao, Shri Thapelyal, and Mr. Banerjee has been the past president. NCQM as a premier institution, is engaged in promoting quality culture in Indian economic sectors through various services like training, education, publication, research and advice in Ajmer, Coimbatore, Navi Mumbai, Noida, and Pune. I think as the demand goes up, as the consciousness of quality goes up, we need to really spread our wings into many other areas, and we seek the support of all of you to achieve this aim of NCQM. Our vision is to be a premier professional institution to spread culture of quality in all aspects of human endeavor. And our mission is to operate as professional, not-for-profit service organization to promote quality, leading to total satisfaction to all our stakeholders, and to provide knowledge and expertise to business, industry, and society, and also to the individual human being in pursuit of quality. I'm sure with these words, I won't like to take much of your time, but I again welcome all of you, though we are in a different scenario and situation, but still I'm sure we will all be able to take the advantage and the learning process, especially of through this achieving resilience through the excellence in this uncertain times. Once again, on behalf of NCQM, I thank you, all of you, and welcome all of you on the eve of this DL Shah Memorial Lecture. Thank you once again and welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Maheshbhai Gandhi, for the welcome address.
Thank you very much.
May I now request Sri Hari Taneja, trustee of the DL Shah Trust, to give a brief introduction of DL Shah Trust and their activities.
Thank you. Padma Vibhushan Dr. Mashelkar, Shri Mahesh Gandhi, trustee of NCQM, Shri Santosh Khadgade, president of NCQM, other trustees of NCQM, other trustees of DL Shah Trust, including Mr. Noria, who is present here, Mr. Khambata, CEO of DL Shah Trust, Mr. Kurup, and Shri Arvind Gathias, Honorary Secretary of NCQM. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Shah, as you know, was an industrialist, visionary, and a philanthropist. He was born in 1907 and passed away in 1999, leaving all his life savings in this trust, which is called DL Shah Trust. Very early in his life, he understood the critical importance of quality and spent all his life in promoting the same. It was his life's mission to see that the brand India becomes a global brand and is respected all over the world. If today Indian products and services receive the respect that they deserve, a large amount of credit goes to the work done by Shri D.L. Shah, continually promoting the concept of quality. Some of you may recall that in the early 90s, Shri Shah had published 20 books on the subject of quality and had 60,000 copies of each of these books distributed free of cost to various organizations such as universities, colleges, corporates, and quality professionals. Mr. Shah was a true Gandhian, believing in simple living and high thinking. He lived by the maxim of Albert Einstein, which says, 100 times every day I remind myself that my inner and outer life depends on the labors of other men, living and dead, and that I must exert myself in order to give in the same measure as I have received and I'm still receiving, unquote. It gives me great pleasure on behalf of the DL Shah Trust to extend a very warm welcome to Dr. Mashelkar and all the participants in this gathering today. I will not take much of your time because you're all waiting for Dr. Mashelkar to give his address. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now request Mr. Santosh Khadagade, President NCQM, to introduce today's speaker, Dr. R.A. Mashelkar. Over to you, Santosh.
Thank you, Ashok. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
We are fortunate to have Dr. Raghunath Anant Mashelkar as a speaker for this year's DL Shah Memorial Lecture. Yeah, give me a moment. Give me a moment, please.
Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, there was a little disturbance as it went live on YouTube because the number of participants have exceeded 100. So sorry for that. Now let me start. Good afternoon, gentlemen and ladies. We are fortunate to have Dr. Raghunath Anant Mashelkar as a speaker for this year's DL Shah Memorial Lecture. It is like a dream come true for all of us at NCQM and DL Shah Trust. The power, the flight of imagination has no limit except the one you put on your mind, on your own mind. This comes 100% true on Dr. Mashelkar. A dangerous optimist. I borrowed this from internet. Dr. Mashelkar is uniquely multifaceted. Dr. R.A. Mashelkar, National Research Professor, has been the Director General of Council of Scientific and Industrial Research. Chairman of National Innovation Foundation, is also the President of Indian National Science Academy, Global Research Alliance and Institute of Chemical Engineers, UK. In recognition of his pioneering research contributions in polymer science and engineering, he has been honored as a Fellow of Royal Society, Foreign Fellow of US National Academy of Science, as also Engineering Foreign Associate of American Academy of Arts and Science, and Fellow of US National Academy of Inventors. 44 universities from around the world have honored him with honorary doctorate. The 60+ awards won by him include the prestigious TWAS Lenovo Science Prize, one of the most prestigious honors given to scientists from the developing world. In 2018, the award was given to Dr. Mashelkar for his seminal contributions in mechanistic analysis, synthesis, and application of novel stimuli responsive polymers. Business World USA Award of Star of Asia in the year 2005 from US President George W. Bush. The citation lauded Dr. Mashelkar's efforts in transformation of CSIR, his role of leading India's intellectual property rights movement, and also his overall impact in the past decade on influencing Indian science and technology policy and direction. As early as in 1998, Dr. Mashelkar was awarded with JRD Tata Corporate Leadership Award. Dr. Mashelkar, who was a member of Scientific Advisory Council to the Prime Minister of the country for over 30 years, has been honored with Padma Shri, Padma Bhushan, and Padma Vibhushan, three of the highest civilian awards honors in the country. Lastly, if God permits one wish, Dr. Mashelkar says he will ask for one day on Earth again in 2050 to see his dream coming true, India as a leading advanced nation. With this brief introduction, I once again welcome Dr. Mashelkar and request him to deliver his lecture. Dr. Mashelkar, please.
6:30.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. I want to, first of all, thank NCQM, thank the DL Shah Trust for the honor bestowed on me. I see great stalwarts in front of me, Sri Gandhi, Sri Taneja, Sri Banerjee, Sri Noria, and of course, the president of NCQM. I really am beholden to you for doing me this honor. I want to pay my respects to Dr. DL Shah. He was, of course, ahead of time. Today we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Today we talk about Make in India. He talked about Made in India in those days, in mid-50s. And emphasize quality. I also says, Make in India for the world. Now you can't do it for the world. I think it would be nice if all of you can mute. Those who are not speaking should generally mute so that we don't get disturbances of the kind that we are getting. Thank you. So our Honorable Prime Minister talks about Made in India for the world, but the world would not accept our products if there is no excellence in terms of quality. So it is actually Make in India for the world, but Make in India, invent in India, design in India, and create quality products, not only just for India, but for the world. And Mr. Shah had recognized that so early. So we are all beholden to him. Quality, yes, I have been associated with Quality Council of India. As many of you might know, I was the first president of National Quality Council of India for the first 6 years. And I find Girdhar Gyani, having talked here and given a talk, he was the Secretary General when I was the president, a wonderful individual, I must say, who helped us lay the foundations when the National Quality Council of India was being formed. So when you read out the list starting from my dear friend Sri Lula, it was really wonderful to be counted amongst them. So thank you. The topic I have chosen today is a topic that the whole world is worried about. If you go to Google and see which is the most Googled word in the last 6 months, it is resilience, by the way. Okay, so how do you match resilience with excellence? How do you create resilience with returns while managing excellence? I think is the challenge. Now, if you just see the pandemic that we have had, these crises are not new. For example, geopolitical crisis. Of course, Donald Trump is no more, but as a president, but Donald Trump or Brexit, the kind of geopolitical crisis that they created. The economic slowdown, by the way, 2008 was not the first slowdown. 1929, 1973, 1997, we had these. Then there were natural calamities like cyclones, tsunami, floods that create again crisis. And of course, climate crisis. That is something that is staring us in our eyes, and it is leading to droughts, wildfires, rising sea levels, and of course, pandemics, SARS, swine flu, COVID-19 we have just gone through, and we are not over as yet. We can't drop our guards. Although the vaccine has come, the virus is mutating, and therefore we will have to be on guard all the time. So I think what becomes very, very important is that we must build resilience, and that is going to be the most important leadership skill, I would straight away say. Now, if you see Bill Gates in 2015 TED Talk, he had said that we are not ready for the next pandemic. 2015, 6 years ago. And he had then predicted that it is most likely to be a highly infectious virus. Now, COVID-19, many people call a black swan, but somebody has called it a black elephant. You know why? And this is the article in Harvard Business Review. It says, while some have described the COVID-19 pandemic as a black swan event, in reality, it should be treated as a black elephant, a cross between a black swan event and the elephant in the room. When do you say something is an elephant in the room? It is obvious. It is looking at you. It is staring at you, and still you don't take notice. And therefore, we have to be very careful about the new events that might come up. You know, when we talk about, for example, digital India, we are talking about cyber security. And tomorrow, if a disaster takes place because of cyber security, you can't complain and say, no, 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 we did not anticipate that. You have to anticipate all these things and be prepared. Now, there's a nice book I recommend for Zakaria. He had talked about 10 lessons for a post-pandemic world. What comes next? And he says, my fear is COVID-19 will be the brace rehearsal. And we'll have another crisis too big to handle. And he straight away says that COVID-19 lockdown are a sign of failure. Can somebody please mute your mics, because we're getting a disturbance. The significant setback for the world's ambition to achieve sustainable development goals is very clear, because we had talked about, within 2035, no poverty, no hunger, good health, quality education, all of that has gone for toss, as you can quite clearly see. When we talk about good health, you can see the lives and the livelihoods that have been lost. Absolutely incredible. When you talk about quality education, as you saw, 1.6 billion children went out of school, and 1/3 of them did not have access to digital education, because online learning became the key. And if you just see the challenge that you had, if you look at inequalities, for example, they were continuously reducing, and that was great. But after COVID, you can quite clearly see they have started actually rising, and that's not a good news at all. And as a matter of fact, World Bank had said that COVID-19 will push 100 million people into extreme poverty, and that has actually come true. Now, there are mega trends that are revisited post-pandemic, and if you just see, the accelerating digitalization is certainly something that has happened. The fact that we are not able to have this meeting physically, but digitally, is absolutely sort of obvious. And that is leading to concentration of profits to digital platformers. As you know, the industry as a whole suffered, but the Apples of this world, the Microsofts of this world, the geo platforms of this world, they made money. Similarly, the dispersion of urban population is another thing, and you will have also the cross-border division of labor that will come in. So there are huge changes that you can see that are depicted on this slide. Some of them will be permanent. Now, digitalization has hit a fast-forward button, like what Satya Nadella said. We have seen 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months. 2 months. Telemedicine in UK, for example, 10 years of change in 1 week. Can you just imagine? That is what one expert is saying. And if you look at the US e-commerce penetration, it was increasing slowly.
Dr.
But as you can
Mashelkar,
see, yes.
sorry to disturb you. I think we're still getting some what do you call disturbance. What I will do is I will just mute all for and then I will just unmute you, so that then
Yeah.
we
I
can
think that
continue
would be
without
better.
disturbance.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you can see, the e-commerce was growing at a particular rate. But 10 years growth was seen in 3 months, as you can see from this chart. So COVID has done many different things. Now, if you again move forward and see, it has pushed the rise of tech companies, as you can quite clearly see. The big tech companies reap gains as COVID-19 fears shift in demand. And as you can see, for Apple, for Microsoft, for Amazon, for Alphabet, for Facebook, how their market caps have actually grown. Now, why resilience is so important now? As an expert, a political scientist has said, we have less historical precedent for our understanding of today's challenges, and that demands a new dimension of resilience. And this has to be at an individual level, at a team level, at an organizational level, at a national level, okay? And I would say even societal level. Now, if you just see individual level, how do you remain resilient? If you ask me two examples of the most resilient people, I would say Nelson Mandela is one and Mahatma Gandhi is another one. If you see Nelson Mandela, he was in jail for 27 years. And still he remained optimistic, still he remained resilient. What did he say? Part of being optimistic is keeping one's head pointed toward the sun, one's feet moving forward. There were many dark moments when my faith in humanity was sorely tested, but I would not and could not give myself up to despair. That way lays defeat and death. That's what he had said. In India, you have seen that, by the way. Look at this fantastic girl, all right? Jyoti Kumari. As it says, a lion-hearted 15-year-old cycled all the way from Gurgaon to Haryana to Bias, Darbhanga district with her incapacitated father, Mohan Paswan, seated in the carrier. 15-year-old girl going 1,200 kilometers in 8 days, bringing her father home from Gurgaon to Bihar. That's why I always say that it is the human spirit which will finally conquer. So calamities will go, all the huge disruptions will occur, but human spirit, like this young girl has shown, will prevail. I'm very happy that they are making a movie on her life. I think it needs to be made. Now we can learn a lot about resilience from biological systems, for example. Redundancy, for example, duplication of elements. Heterogeneity, there are different types of elements, contract types, factory types. Modularity, there are separate models, subsidiaries, plants, they're loosely linked, but they act like circuit breakers. One thing happens to one module, the other module doesn't get disturbed. Then adaptation, rapid adjustment, and prudence. Well, the future may not be foreseeable, downside scenarios can often be envisioned. And applying these design principles from biological systems, one can increase the resilience. For example, if you look at the performance, okay, it was going steady and you have a shock and then it comes down and then you have to bounce back. Now, if you look at a resilient company and a non-resilient company, the resilient company has all these biological attributes, like anticipation advantage in terms of prudence, cushioning advantage in terms of redundancy, modularity, diversity, embeddedness. And finally, adaptation and shaping advantage like embeddedness and adaptation. So we can learn from biology. Now, I have suggested these 10 tenets to become crisis resilient. And I will go through each one of them. First one is adaptability. The second is agility. Third is resilient thinking. Fourth is scenario-based planning. Fifth is purpose-driven organization. Sixth is platformization. Seventh is digital ready. Eighth is fostering self-disruption. Next is climate consciousness. And last is autonomous innovation. Let me go through each one of these. Now, if you see the adaptability, that is the best strategy when business environment is hard to predict. For example, you can see here the predictability basically versus shaping the industry. And the classical thing is simply be big so nothing can affect you, all right? But it is preferable to be adaptive and be fast, or a visionary and be first. And most important is shaping, be the orchestrator so that you can renew yourself viably. Like our own TCS, from 1996 to 2019, it grew from $150 million to $21 billion. But they had always a strategy which adapted to shifts in technology, customer needs, and business environment, which kept on changing, as you know, in these 20 years. Charles Darwin, you will remember, the English naturalist, who had always said that it is not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is most adaptable to change. So adaptability is most important. The second is agility. How quickly you can adapt and respond to changes. You don't have 5 years and 10 years to chill out. You have to do it in 5 months, 5 weeks. How do you do that? I found a fantastic example, and this is from Israel. They created an open source ventilator in just 13 days at 1% of the cost of high-end ventilators. What did they do? They had 40 Israeli collaborators, techies, first responders, hospitals, defense contractors, and later they released the source code to make the user-friendly ambovent, and that has been downloaded by 40,000 times within short time, just short time. That is how fast your response is. But then you would say, as usual, you are giving foreign example. Is there something in India? I would say in India, right here in Pune, where I am. This is the chief technology officer of what is called as a MyLab. They started work in January as soon as WHO released the genome sequence, January 2020. On 28th March, they launched the first Made in India kit. They tested 1.2 million people in 3 months, and they had 3x reduction in price because we have to be always affordable. Most importantly, like our Prime Minister says, Atmanirbhar Bharat, 95% components were sourced locally. And on 25 July, they launched the first Made in India antigen testing kit. This is phenomenal. I think the speed of this is absolutely incredible. And most importantly, the cost was just $7 per test. So we have shown within India that we can rise to the occasion, right? If you see the $1 antiviral repurposed drug for COVID, for example, within no time, my own CSIR, I'm very happy to say, they provided the API and key starting materials for Cipla, and this $1 antiviral repurposed drug for COVID was launched within no time at all. And the Cipla managers actually drove all the way by car from Mumbai to Hyderabad for 15 hours with packed food and water as hotels were shut in order to sort of move. So the resilient spirit of a human being was shown. And I think the most important is this global vaccine development. It takes 5 to 10 years to develop a global vaccine, but just see this incredible performance. On December 1, the COVID-19 illness was documented. Okay. January 10, it was sequenced. Okay? And within no time, they designed the mRNA vaccine. Within 5 days, they designed the vaccine, and the Moderna phase trials actually began on March 16. And on December 11, the first vaccination began in healthcare professionals. Never in human history it has happened sort of that fast. So that is part of resilience, adaptability, agility. The third is resilience thinking. So you design the system in such a way that any unforeseen events will be made. And my most favorite example is Dhirubhai Ambani. I've been very closely associated with Reliance. I've been on their board from 2007, but my association goes long way back. Mukesh Bhai was a student of UDCT, now ICT, Institute of Chemical Technology. From those days, we have known each other. And look at Dhirubhai. He was to set up a refinery, and that was a new experience for them. So they called the consultants. The consultants, as usual, asked him, for what specification would you like to design the refinery? He said, well, specifications. I should be able to process right from dirt to the most superior crude. But they said, this has not been done anywhere. He said, no, there is always a first time. Do it. Because I want to completely resilient no matter what happens. So today, if you see, the Jamnagar refinery is able to handle 135 types of different crudes today, from the dirtiest to the best. And impact of that is that, Dhirubhai had said, I had dreams of starting a company like Burma Shell. Forget about Burma Shell. Exxon, which is number one, Reliance has now overtaken Exxon to become world's number 2 energy firm. Can you just believe it? So this is the power of resilience, that thinking that actually helped. The fourth one is scenario-based planning, making assumptions on what the future is going to be and planning accordingly. So, for example, you look at the Shell, okay? Shell has been developing possible visions of the future since early 1970s, by the way, okay? So, for example, if you see, they have been there for 100 years, they're in 100 countries, 14 sectors, 10 energy carriers they use, etc. And if you see Fortune Global ranking of Shell, 1995, they were 10, 2009, they're 1, 2019, they are 3. So for almost 25 years, they have remained in the top 10. And that is because they are expert in scenario planning. What they do is to respond faster than other companies by virtue of their sensitivity to emerging topics such as climate change, the rise of China, shale gas, etc., etc. The future black planning based on mega trend scenarios will be critical in future. You have to look at the future. What will the future like? What will the global order be? All right. Now, COVID-19 is going to reshape the global balance. And therefore, societies and economies will react, firms and markets will react, households and individuals will react. Now, from there, you have to backtrack and see what are the changes that you have to make. So like decarbonization, techno-economic Cold War, future of thinking, using synthetic biology and so on. So this is the medium term. This is the long term. And then in short term, you have to get some fundamentals right, like technology, demographics, impact of globalization, environment, etc. The next one is purpose driven. Why does an organization exist is what we have to always ask for. You know, if you look at an organization, people know what we do. People know how we do it. But they don't know why we exist, basically. You know, what is the purpose? And therefore, purpose is actually most important. And the purpose-driven companies where every employee is engaged in terms of fulfilling that big purpose. You know, S&P 500, the purpose-driven companies outperformed the S&P 500 by 10x between 1996 and 2011. You can see that. All right. And employees with strong sense of purpose are at least 4x more likely to be engaged in their jobs as other employees. That shows. So you have to have a purpose. Now, I'll tell you, since crisis, we have talked about 2008 economic, crisis that we had. Let us see how Reliance reacted. See, I've been chairman of Reliance Innovation Council from 2007. We have a big council. We play a great emphasis on innovation. And that council had Nobel laureates like John Marilyn, Nobel laureates like Bob Grubbs from Caltech, C.K. Prahlad was a member, he's no more, and so on and so forth. And I remember Reliance response to financial meltdown in 2008. And we said that every single employee of Reliance must be engaged for a common cause. And we created what is called as Mission Kurukshetra. I remember this discussion with Mukesh Bhai when we created that. And we said every employee must be engaged. It's not just the job of the top management. All right. And what would be the purpose like? What would be the basic tenets like? 3, extreme efficiency, value maximization, and war on waste. Why did we call it Mission Kurukshetra? We don't like to copy, these, there are a lot of best practices around the world and you talk. I don't, in fact, like best practice. Best practice is copying somebody's, what he has done as a best practice, and then you follow. You have to create next practice. You have to create your own terminology. You have to create your own inspiration. So we created Mission Kurukshetra. What is Kurukshetra? Mission Kurukshetra? Kurukshetra was the war between the good and the bad, Pandavas and Kauravas, right? What is bad? Inhibition, imitation. What is good? Innovation. So it's a war of these two. And you can see now the entire organization, the way it was galvanized, incredible and brought enormous benefit because the purpose was defined and the whole alignment took place. Platformization is very important, moving from products to platform. You can quite clearly see the importance of that. If you look at the market cap in 2009, which were the top 5 companies? PetroChina, ExxonMobil, Microsoft, ICBC China, and BHP Billiton. Excepting Microsoft, everything was a brick and mortar company. All right. Now, if you look at 2019, just 10 years down the line, everybody is missing from there, excepting for Microsoft. And the top 5 companies are the companies which are actually platform companies. In fact, platform for the world's most valuable companies. And that's why you see when Jio, you have seen the spectacular success of Jio. And that success has been because of Jio's total solutions approach. And you can see that even COVID time, people wonder how such investment actually could come from right down from Facebook to Silver Lake and so on and so forth. It has been possible because of that. And that is where RIL was able to jump 47 places in 3 months to 51st most valued company in the world with $170 billion market cap. So platformization is very important. The next one is being digital ready. All right. Now, as I said, the new word is going to be digital, and adoption of digital technologies is going to be extremely important. In fact, it is not going to be an option. If you are not digital, you wouldn't exist. And you can see that digital transformation is becoming key to becoming resilient. If you see different characteristics like productivity, sustainability, agility, speed to market, customization, etc. The end-to-end digital manufacturer, for example, the impact is huge, like the productivity increase, or for example, the lead time reduction, and so on and so forth. The other thing is urgency to become digital resilient changes by sector after sector, by the way. This end, it is the low, and this end, it is high. Okay, and these are self-retentive potential for digital disruption and transformation. And digital transformation builds long-term resilience. And you can quite clearly see the automotive, shipping, consumer retail on this side, software, telecom here, and medical technology, IT hardware here, and the least is public sector and power and utilities. The next one is the importance of Industry 4.0 that we talk about. And agility and flexibility have gained prominence over cost now, that we must understand. You know, for example, the change that is taking place in industry now is not hypothesis driven, but data driven. Data is new oil, as they say. Not less waste, no waste. Not replace humans, but cyber physical production. It is not going to be digital world or physical world. It's going to be phygital world, physical and digital combined in an optimal way. We were always responsive. No, sorry, data allows you productivity. We are factory bound. No, now we are all interconnected in Industry 4.0. You look at repetitive production. No, this will be smart and flexible production, changing practically every day. One size fits some. No, one size fits none. Then walled garden to cross-domain skills, linear to circular, and product focus to client-centric. So there is going to be this huge change as we become more resilient. And you can see the accelerated Industry 4.0 adoption. Companies whose Industry 4.0 is more mature report stronger ability to respond. So you can quite clearly see no implementation at this end to at least some user cases scaled and the increase here, right? The digitalization, the core of self-optimization. So for example, there is this company Aspentech. I spoke to their senior management on the other day. They have this ability to do what is called as the self-adapting, self-learning, and self-sustaining set of software technologies that work together to anticipate the future conditions. You see, our challenge comes because we can't anticipate the future, and when it comes, we are all dumbfounded. No. Here, what happens is that if you are self-learning, then you utilize system data for accurate prediction. If you are self-adapting, then you react in real time to changing conditions. And if you are self-sustaining, then you detect anomalies and trigger mitigation. This is the huge change that all our industry must embrace. I would suggest, as a matter of fact, we talk about quality in a very standard way in terms of products and processes. I think in the new digital world, let us start defining the meaning of quality in a completely different way, by the way. If we talked about quality 1.0, let us start talking about quality 2.0 and 3.0 now. Digital twin is helping building resilient operations, whether it is in oil and gas, renewable energy, transportation, manufacturing, and so on and so forth. Digital twin is like creating somebody who is exactly like you, but in a digital form. All right? Like, for example, this gentleman in healthcare industry, a multi-scale personalized computational model. So what it does is that it's a lifelong personalized physiological model that is updated with each scan. Each exam that you take actually goes into the data, and this becomes a person-centric prevention and holistic treatment. The next one is fostering self-disruption. Innovate to disrupt yourself. I think you remember the Sony chairman saying, no, I want to displace my own products myself. If not, my competitors will do it for me. You remember that. It is exactly that. So this Govindarajan's book, I recommend actually, 3-box solution. So what he talks about is the past, the present, and the future. He says, forget the past, let go of the values and practices that fuel the current business, but fail the new ones. And then in the present, it is optimizing the current business, but looking at the future, inventing new business models, that is going to be the critical part. Look at a company like Novartis. It is thriving since 260 years by leaping knowledge disciplines. Novartis' basis was organic chemistry. They moved into microbiology. Then they moved into genomic. And today, actually, Novartis is as a medicines and data science company, by the way. Artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data, etc. Can you imagine organic chemistry to AI, ML, big data? How many of our companies are moving like this? I think it is important to ponder over this, because if we don't reimagine, don't reinvent ourselves, we will not survive. The most important part, of course, is climate conscious. We are really in a very, very difficult situation, and adopting sustainability and environmental friendly approach while doing business is going to be important. It is not good or green. It has to be both good and green. It cannot be green or growth. It has to be green growth. And this C.K. Prahlad, my own guru, his paper, it came up in 2010, where he says how green growth is going to be sort of critical. And Unilever launched Sustainable Living Plan in 2010, as you know, and this year marks Sustainable Living Plan's 10th year. And why sustainability is now the key driver of innovation. In fact, within Reliance, we are talking in terms of becoming a carbon zero firm by 2035. And the whole world is changing around it. That's the 9th. And the last one, and there is a big program, by the way, in terms of Reliance. I'm myself involved. We call it New Energy, by the way. So I'm myself involved in many different ways in this new venture, and it is really breathtaking in the way that we are wanting to move. In fact, many of you may not be aware, but one of the great ways of removing carbon dioxide is putting algae there, because in the presence of sunlight and water and carbon dioxide, algae are able to pick it, photosynthesize, convert it into lipids, and that goes to oil. Can you just sort of imagine? And world's biggest algae to oil sort of plant, I mean, the experiment is going on today in Gujarat. Not the rest of the world doesn't just know about it, because Reliance doesn't talk about it. But these are the important initiatives for the future to remain resilient, whatever may happens to oil. There is a Mission Possible platform that World Economic Forum has launched, and there are all these aviation, shipping, chemicals, etc. They have all become partners. These are the names of the partners, And the three socio-economic system could deliver $10.1 trillion of annual business opportunities here. So this is a coalition of public and private partners to set heavy industry and mobility sectors on pathway towards net zero emissions by mid-century. So that was the 10th tenet, the 9th tenet. And the last one is innovation. Innovation, innovation, innovation. And autonomous innovation is very important. Like there is a necessity, through innovation, you can meet creativity. For example, look at this gentleman. I'm chairman of what is called as the National Innovation Foundation. We believe that everyone is someone, everybody has an idea. So this is called grassroots innovation. So 2000, that National Innovation Foundation was set up to honor such people. So here is this Saifullah, and he created Muhammad Saidullah. So when there were floods in Lucknow, he had to sort of go on the other side, and he couldn't go. So he created an amphibian bicycle by which he went there. And you can see here Dr. Kalam actually honoring him, Professor Anil Gupta, who is actually at the heart of National Innovation Foundation. You can see myself there. And this human spirit that let there be flood, let be this, I want to achieve this particular object and I will remain resilient, I think is going to be most important. That is at an individual level. But at a collective level, I would say that innovating during the crisis that triggered the fastest recovery, if you see the normalized market capitalization, not only did through crisis innovators outperform in the crisis by 10%, but they also outperformed the market by upward 30% in post-crisis period. You can quite clearly see the data here. So innovation is absolutely fundamental. That is the 10 tenet. I like to end by talking about a book that myself and my friend Ravi Pandit wrote in 2019. And this book is called Leapfrogging to Pole Vaulting. And this book received the best business book of the year in Tata Live Festival last year. What is this book about? This book is, brings out a very interesting principle, by the way. And this is about leapfrogging to pole vaulting. And I will tell you the origin of this. As I told you, I'm chairman of Reliance Innovation Council, and once Mukesh Bhai and I were talking, and somewhere he said, Dr. Mashelkar, we must leapfrog into something. So I said, let's think about leapfrogging. Why does the frog leap? He leaps because he's afraid of the predator. He leaps because he's afraid of the enemy. And he jumps a few feet to protect himself. So because we are afraid of the competitor, should we just jump a few feet? Or should we pole vault? The size of the pole determines the size of our aspiration. All right? And we can go sort of miles. Now, he loved it, and we created what is called then as a leadership program called Beyonders. Picking some 30-odd young people who were able to think beyond the realms of possibilities. And this particular book has a third chapter, which talks about a framework. And I'll tell you, it is very funny. When somebody asks me, Are Baba, it is okay, you are pole vaulting, but how do you make sure that when you take such a high jump and you come down, you don't break your bones? So I said, for that, you can create what is called as an assured framework. And as long as you adhere to it, you will not fall. And what is that assured framework? Assured is affordable, scalable, sustainable, universal, that is user-friendly, rapid, excellent in terms of technology, cutting-edge technology, and distinctive. All right, not copying somebody, but creating something of your own. And this framework has been used, as a matter of fact, very extensively now. In fact, if you look at the chapter 3 from the book, you'll find companies which were very successful at a point in time, but they did not remain resilient because they did not fulfill the assured metrics. For example, look at Napster. You remember Napster, which was actually the where the music download could be done freely. Okay, and they had 80 million customers at a point in time. But just look at what happened. They were affordable, they were scalable, they were user friendly, they grew rapidly, they had excellent technology, they were very different in terms of their models, but they were not sustainable. Why? Because in sustainability, there are three factors. Environment, yes. Economics, of course, has to be sort of strong. It has to be sustainable on your own feet. You can't depend upon government subsidies. That is second. But the third one is society. Society must accept it. So the Society of Musicians simply said, you can't download my music free. That's it. And from 80 million, they came to zero. They did not remain resilient. Look at BlackBerry, for instance. Again, I can go through all these factors. They were all there. But they did not remain sustainable and user-friendly. Why user-friendly? Because by that time, the keyboard importance had gone, and you are doing everything by touch, and new technology had come, and they refused to change. And that refusal led them to their demise. So we have considered lots of companies, which were a great success, but they did not remain resilient. My suggestion is that for each of these, we must now start using this kind of a framework and see. And it is not about remaining assured every 3 years. You have to remain assured every day. In fact, Bombay Management Association has now created an assured resilience Assured Resilience Enterprise Award, by the way. And the first award went to Byju's for obvious reasons, as you can quite clearly see. Google Glass, for example, failed it. It was very distinctive, it was excellent, but it was not affordable, it was not scalable, it was not sustainable, it was not user-friendly. And because there is always a doubt when you are using a Google Glass as to what you're doing with the Google Glass. Are you downloading the movie that you're seeing or what? And so on. Look at Jio, for example. Was it affordable? Yes. It was affordable because we said, phone call at no cost at all, voice was 0 and 4 rupees per GB. Was it scalable? Yes, it has 450 million customers. Was it sustainable? Yes, economically as well as otherwise. Was it universal? Yes, you can see both these ladies are using the same sort of device. Was it rapid? Yes, they grew fastest. In fact, their 50 million customers onboarding was done in record time of 83 days, which holds as a world record today. Excellence, yes, 4G LTE, and distinctive, yes, business models as well as technological models. Now, how do you remain that? Will they remain, remain assured? No, somebody can beat them to affordability. Somebody can beat them by bringing in new technology and so on and so forth. So every day you must measure this matrix and see whether you remain resilient. My final point is, we talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat. I'm a great believer in that, but I like to see Atmanirbhar Bharat with Atma Vishwas, with Atma Sanman, Atma Saksham. All right, it has to be a strong one. And I think the building Atmanirbhar Bharat with assured resilience would be the key for our future. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the informating and enthralling lecture. At this point in time, I have a couple of questions which have reached me, and I put them across to you so that they can be answered. The first question is, what, according to you, are the key factors that build individual resilience?
Oh, there are many important factors. I think the first is, there are three parts of it. There is a mental part, there is a spiritual part, all right? And the basic issue is that having an optimistic attitude is a great key, by the way, okay? Many times, as you have seen on my website, if you have seen the website, you will see that it says there is no limit to human imagination and achievement excepting the limit you put on yourself. You have seen that. But you read out the biodata, it said dangerous optimist. All right. And that dangerous optimism is something that runs through me all along. So if I see a half glass full, half glass empty, I don't start giving lectures on the empty half glass. I look at the positive sort of part of it. As they say, if there is a darkness, okay, then suddenly electricity goes, we'll start giving a big lecture on how lousy the government is. But one of us has the ability to go out and, light a mastic and, mombatti and create a this thing, etc. So somehow or other, you must have that ability to do this. I think that is sort of most important. All my life, I've done that, by the way. Just to give you a small instance, Delhi University, there was a big challenge and they were going to go with a morcha after the lecture that I was going to give. And somebody said, as you know, we are all in coma because there was a big, and Dr. Mashelkar will tell us what to do. And I remember I said, look, I've not addressed so far 500 people who are in coma, but maybe he said they are at a comma. What is the meaning of comma? You are written half the sentence. You are taking a pause, but you have to write the rest of the sentence. And maybe you write it positively, and several sentences make a paragraph, a page, and a golden page, and a golden chapter, and the whole thing can come. That just that indicator, after I left, people started debating, and they said, what did Mashelkar say? Comma, and they dropped going to the Vice Chancellor, by the way. Can you just imagine just the positive way of looking at things can make such a difference? Then there are other angles with regard to mental strength, ability to interpret fail as in a different way. Fail, I always interpret FAIL as first attempt in learning. All right. Correct. Your best guru is your last mistake, as long as you are able to learn from it, etc. So there are these. I would, to the questioner, what I would do is that there was an Australian expert who interviewed me on resilience, by the way, and that is on the YouTube, which covers the individual resilience, institutional resilience, societal resilience, national resilience, as well as enterprise resilience. I'll send you the link if you can pass it on to the gentleman.
Sure, sir. Thank you. We'll do that. The second question is, you talked about the 10 tenets. So question is, where do organizations start on these 10 tenets? Because they are in themselves quite a bit of work to do and quite, mind expanding. So where do they start?
Oh, well, if you saw, like I showed to you in the assured matrix, if you fail on one, you fail everywhere. So I don't think they have a choice, by the way. If they say, "Arey bhai, digitalization baad mein kar lenge," you get my point. They are in immediate trouble, as a matter of fact. None of them, they need to be, and in fact, they have to be in startup mode, by the way. Even the old legacy enterprises have to be in the startup mode now, because the way things are changing, the technology changing, the geopolitical scenario is changing. It's absolutely incredible. We can't defer anything. If you just see, for example, we are quite happy to call ourselves the pharmacy of the world, right? But we all depend upon APIs, active pharmaceutical ingredients. Where do they come from? China. 70% of them, by the way, come from China. If tomorrow China stops it, so we are done. So we can't take it for granted that they will not stop it or they will not raise the prices suddenly to make us uncompetitive, etc. We have to be prepared. Now we are getting ready. We had API factories which we had closed. So I think this future scenario building that I talked about as one of the tenets is something that we have to continuously do, by the way. That's a dynamic. It is not every quarterly we will evaluate, etc., etc. I'm sorry, what is a quarter in the
new scenario? Yes. So the next question that has come is, which one has more impact? Is it adaptability or self-disruption for getting the quantum leap?
I would say that each one of these are important. I cannot distinguish them, very frankly. That is one big mistake we'll make, as a matter of fact, if we start picking and choosing out of all these. Then you would say, how do I give priority to all 10? They're all interwoven, actually, if you see. Supposing you are adapting, but you are not agile enough in adapting, you take 5 years. It is like that frog, if you put him in water and gradually raise the temperature,
Yes.
he gets so accustomed that he dies. But if you put him in a boiling water, he will jump, as a matter of fact. So imagine all of us as the temperature is rising and we are getting used to it. Oh, chalega nahi na? So therefore, I think they're all sort of interrelated. Like resilient thinking. When we talk about resilient thinking, while we are planning itself, again we are doing scenario planning. If this happens, if Middle East stops crude, if Venezuela stops crude, if this happens, if suddenly there is a crisis, a Middle East war, this will happen, etc. So unless you are able to think that, so they are all interlinked. I would urge you not to look at them as something that is different. Like for example, agility and digitalization. They look different, but they are the same, because it is digitalization which gives you the speed, no, of doing things, as you have seen, as a matter of fact, ourselves, after the digital world sort of came into being, the entire work process is being changed, and so on and so forth. So please don't look at them as 10 separate ones. They're all integrated, I would say.
The next question is how Indian society will become resilient, and this is probably very important for our Atmanirbhar Bharat goal that we are talking about. So what are your thoughts on that?
I will go back to my childhood and give an example, and that example will illustrate. I was born in a very poor family. My father died when I was 6. I was born in a village called Mashel. That's how I'm Mashelkar. And my mother brought me to Mumbai. And 2 meals a day was a challenge. She did manual work to bring me up. I walked barefoot until I was 12. I studied under street lights. And I went to a Marathi school, municipal school. And after 7th standard, I remember I had to get into 8th standard. And we required 21 rupees. And my mother took some 21 days to get it. So in the meantime, what happened was that all school admissions were closed to good schools. And I went into a poor school. And thank God I went to that poor school, but that poor school had rich teachers. One of them was Principal Bhave. He did not believe in chalk and talk. He believed in seeing and learning, doing and learning, by the way, and so on. So he would take us to Sivri soap factory and show us how soap is made, or Vimco, and so on and so forth, like that. So one day he took me out into the sun, and this is the most important part of the story. He had a convex lens in hand, and he had a piece of paper like this. He moved that convex lens up and down, and when the brightest spot came, he said, "This is the focal length." And then he held it for some time, and the paper burnt. Then he turned to me and he said, "Like this, Mashelkar, if you focus, you can achieve anything. You can burn the paper, you can achieve anything." That gave me 2 things. First, I said, my God, science is so powerful, I must become a scientist. The second thing it gave me was focus and you can achieve anything. So in my life, for example, I've focused. But as I grew, I must tell you, I got more lessons. And this is the most important lesson. This is a convex lens. What are sun's rays? They're all parallel. Okay? They're all parallel. Now, what is the property of parallel lines you have learned in school? They never meet.
Meet, correct.
Right? They never meet. What does convex lens do? It makes them meet, converge, right? So here is a society which is divided by race, religion, language, this, that, and the other, etc. What does a convex lens leader do? Bring them together. That's what we need. What do we have? Concave lens leadership. What does concave lens do? You know what that is? Yeah. Disperse it further. I think we must create convex lens leaders. That's a single line answer. That's it.
Okay. There's one more question which is there, which says, in which sector in the post-pandemic do you think, as regards manufacturing area is concerned, which sector in the post-pandemic do you think will see, growth and progress?
Oh, well, I think the key is technology sector, basically. That will see not only growth, but exponential growth. Because the rest of the world is going to be ruled by sort of technology. And I would strongly suggest that don't look at technology as an externality. Technology has to be integrated. I remember when I became the DG of CSIR and Secretary of DSIR, I remember the weighted tax deduction for doing R&D. You know, in fact, I brought it back. By the way, it has been lost in VP Singh's time, and Dr. Manmohan Singh's time. He was the finance minister. We brought it back, and we kept it only for knowledge industries like IT, BT, information technology, biotechnology. And I said, no, each one has to be the knowledge industry, like auto and so on and so forth. Okay? So what is going to happen is that these technologies, frontier technology, they are going to go exponentially, particularly exponential technologies, whether it is big data analytics, whether it is Internet of Things, whether it is virtual reality, augmented reality, blockchain, etc., etc. Okay, anybody who is in that business will grow sharply. You have seen now EduTech, for example. You have seen what has happened to Byju's market cap, because suddenly they have grown sort of exponentially. So all technology-led areas will grow exponentially, but those industries which are even brick and mortar, which use exponential technology, they will grow. In fact, I would put it the other way around. If they don't, then they won't grow. That is the issue.
Okay. All right. I have one more question. It says, for any company to work on these tenets, do you have any recommendations for specific actions?
Oh, well, I've given them in my speech. I suppose there is nothing more that is sort of required. If you deep dive into each, you will find that each one of us will have to do analysis. You may be in paints and pigments, you may be in drugs and pharmaceuticals, you may be in cement, etc., etc. Your variations, I mean, what you have to do is to apply it to your own sector and look at the possible disruptions that are going to take place. Because there are some where things, the changes will not be very rapid. So some factors will become relatively unimportant, but in some, they will become sort of very, very important indeed. I mean, if you just look at the way things are going to happen, China as a manufacturing hub, for example, was taken for granted, but China has become now unreliable. Unreliable, and therefore India has an opportunity, provided it sets up some of those L's, whether it is land, labor, and logistics and other issues. If it sets it right, we have actually a big opportunity practically in every sector where they are giving sort of way. But the way to move is not just make in India, invent in India, in each of these sectors. I wouldn't like to distinguish the sector. As long as you do that, you have seen in the mobile sector, we had just look at 2015 and 2020, 5 years. 2015, in the mobile sector, Indian manufacturers had 45% share. Today, it is 9%, 45 to 9. Who ate our lunch? Chinese. Sorry, 45 to 7%. They were 9% when we are 45%. They have come. They are now 63%. Why? Because we took Make in India as assembled in India, right? Whereas they were innovating all the time, making it user friendly. You have seen the sort of what was happening, etc. So when people just say Make in India, I'm not a great believer in that at all. Make in India does not mean assembled in India. Invent in India. So no matter in which industry you are, as long as you are inventing and innovating, you will survive and succeed. In fact, to the contrary, if you don't do that, that's a sure death. I would put it in this way. Rather than getting to the sector, what is going to happen in dyes and drugs and pigments and this, that, and the other. That's not important, according to me.
Okay, sir. So we've exhausted the questions questions, but as is customary, yes, sir.
I think you are mute. If
Mr.
you
Gandhi,
can,
you have to
Will
unmute
unmute it.
yourself.
Is it unmuted?
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
yeah, you are unmuted now.
So we are talking of all these things, creation of assets in terms of human resources. And the new education, national education policy is under framing. The guidelines have been set up. To what extent does the resilience component be included or there in the national policy which is being framed? If it is not so, to what extent we can re-dissect that thing and introduce whether it is there or not in an educational institution? And number three, to what extent the quality component can an important role in this national education through, I would say your own word of assure.
Yeah, sure. No, that's an excellent question. Really an excellent question. See, what happens is that resilience is not explicitly built in education policy at all. In fact,
Correct.
if you look at the new education policy and search for the word resilience, it does not appear there at all.
Absolutely right.
You
I
get
agree.
the point.
That's the reason I raised this issue.
Yeah. And on the other hand, that is the most important quality that we have to have. And therefore, when we talk about new education policy, I always talk about three things: ability, attitude, and aptitude.
Sorry, which one you said?
Ability,
Ability.
attitude,
Yes,
and aptitude.
correct.
Okay? Yeah. So if you are missing one of these, you may have great ability, but if your attitude is not right,
Correct.
you are done. I mean, we are aware of that. And similarly, you don't have an aptitude for a job, you are done, basically. So I think all these three need to be sort of built in, and resilience must figure in. And resilience comes through different things. You know, they would talk about courage, they would talk about dealing with adversity and creating an opportunity, etc., etc. But I think the word resilience has to come at the front end now at the back end, as we have seen from this lecture as well as sort of otherwise. As far as quality is concerned, they use the word excellence, by the way.
Correct.
Yeah. And excellence has to be at the front end, even in research, for example. In fact, on the other day, I sent my comments on the new science, technology, innovation policy. And I said, because the question always is asked is, why is it that India has not got Nobel Prize so far? You get the point. Now,
Correct.
basic issue is, if there is a sea of knowledge, and within that, you just go and put a bucket of water, it doesn't make a difference to that sea. But if you create a wave, then it makes a difference, no? So knowledge, I mean, Nobel Prize is given for those waves. So what I'm saying is that when it comes to quality, the average quality must go up. That's absolutely right. But that is like putting small number of small hillocks of some height. We create Everest. Only those Everest will get Nobel Prizes. So I think what we have to do is not only lift the average quality, average level of excellence, but also create high peaks of excellence. And those peaks of excellence have to be those exceptional children whom you cannot put in the same rut like all the other ordinary children. There is nothing like intellectual democracy. Everybody can't be treated differently. God has made us differently. You get my point? And therefore, these are fundamentally different from just democratization that we basically talk about. Exceptions have to be exceptions. That is my fundamental belief.
So there is one more area, because what we talk that we are so much knowledgeable, but we are loaded with information. See, and we try to say that we are knowledgeable. Now you got to concentrate that information and convert that into knowledge. And the policy also doesn't give you a component of knowledge in forms of concentrated efforts of information convertibility into knowledge. Correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Well, I will put it like this. It goes, I think you raised again an important point. You know, it is like this. There are data.
That's right.
Okay. Data needs to be converted into information. That's the first step. Data is not information. The second is information conversion into knowledge.
Absolutely.
Finally, knowledge conversion into wisdom. 1, 2, 3, 4. There are 4 steps actually.
Correct.
Now, here, what happens is, as long as you're doing learning by rote, all that you're doing is storing information here. So your brain is used as a storage.
Correct.
That brain has to now assume the role of a processor, not as a storage.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And finally, if any one of you has been a consultant, you know that you don't get paid for information.
That's right.
Information is available with Google Guru anytime.
Correct.
Insight that you have. How do you convert information into insight is going to be the key. Are you going to connect the dots? And therefore, these fundamental changes in education policy become important. You know, in terms of the way. So it is today learning by rote. Learning by rote has to be changed to learning by doing. But doing means not what teacher has said, step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, step 5. It is learning by creating, which is new, all right?
That's
Don't do homework, but you create something new. You become a creator of knowledge, not just assimilator of knowledge. And finally, co-creating. Co-creating, because the co-creation, I must say, is not going to be man and man. It is man and machine. It is not man versus machine, all right? Man and machine has to go together. It's not digital versus physical. It is phygital, so as to say, okay? So I think these are the transformational changes that are going to take place. And therefore, I always say, we had right to education. That's correct. The next is right education.
Absolutely.
Right way of education. And in the right education, again, it is not just Jnana Samvardhan, Buddhi Samvardhan, Vyakti Samvardhan, Vichar Samvardhan, etc. There is a Mulya Samvardhan, the values.
Absolutely.
So that is the kind of transformation that we have to sort of look for. I would put it this way.
But the policy, does it address some of these areas?
No, it does. You see, what happens is that many times things are hidden.
I
They
understand.
be brought up front. Like resilience comes there in terms of your building your own moral courage, etc., etc. You know, that
Philosophy.
it becomes more as a philosophical. But as you saw in this resilience 10 tenets, basically all of them can be converted into a challenge. For example, if you just look at out of the 10 chapters, agility, doing it fast. Now within that doing it fast, there are systems, by the way. Power of execution, you know, I mean, being from industry, you would know what are the tenets of doing something sort of speedily and so on and so forth. So each of those tenets actually has to be broken down into kind of systems and processes with sort of achievable outcomes and outputs. You know, so it can be converted. In fact, while I'm speaking, I think I should write a book on resilience with these 10 chapters.
Thank you. Very nice that one could. Thanks, sir, for enlightening us on all those areas. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Shah. We'll share sometime later on some of these issues on an individual level.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
So,
Sorry. Go ahead.
Sorry, Mr. Gandhi, you would say something?
No, because we have this Bequet Awards and all those things. So that's a part of an education system. So it's important that the people at the helm should have some sort of an inkling about what is going to happen in the education and education related policy and the role of quality in achieving some of these objectives. That is what we wanted to press, and people who are participating will have a better feel of the subject through that process. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Now, as is customary for us, as we never end any lecture or any talk within NCQM without a learning session. And may I request Mr. Basudev Banerjee, NCQM trustee, to conduct a learning session so that we can go back with some of the learnings that we have gleaned from your lecture today. Over to you, Mr. Banerjee. Mr. Banerjee, you may have to unmute yourself. Yes.
Unmute.
Yes, we can hear you now.
You can hear you now. Now, I think this is to the participants. What have they learned? Let us see what have they picked up. Then I will keep on adding. Can any of you participants point out something what you have learned as a learning point, because he has given a wonderful exposure to various aspects. What have you picked up which you can apply to your own on this? Any of you would like to?
So participants may please unmute themselves and respond to Mr. Banerjee.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any of you would like to add or, I mean, learning points, not add, any learning point have you picked up? I have picked up at least a dozen. Nothing? Okay. Then I think Ashok and you and me have to do that. So I think he started with the Atmanirbhar Bharat. From there, of course, he talked about Atmanirbhar Samman. And then he went to black swan to black elephant, which you know is a major change in the COVID-19 situation, went on highlighted. Then he talked about significant sort of setbacks which have happened in this sort of inequalities, amplified,
everybody has to be
mega
unmuted, then they can ask you.
Yeah.
Sir Banerjee, sir, I would like to say something before
Yes,
you
Bhajan.
proceed with you
Okay, go
proceed
ahead.
with your learning. So I'm
Go
Mrs.
ahead, Bhajan.
Anuradha Shekhar, and I am from a college institute. Naturally, we are all participating in an NCQM award this function. So what have I picked up? What I have picked up is Sir was excellent in giving out lovely pointers for even an institution like ours, where we are from the education line. I think we should make. Why should we? We should make it something like how our NAC accreditation goes on. In the same fashion, I think the resilient points that he came up with, the assured principle, can be fitted in, because at every point we'll have to check out whether each and every point that he had highlighted about assured can be put into a college workload principle as well. So whether it is affordable, whether it's scalable, whether it's sustainable, whether it's universal, whether it's rapid, whether it's excellent, or whether it's distinctive, I think they all fit in beautifully, even in an educational institution, because education should be for globalization, not just for Indians. And we are definitely looking at innovative ideas, whether it's even a BA student or a BSc student. I think, as he rightly said, that every individual has lovely ideas in his brain, and the creativity needs to be flowing out, and this needs to be given a little more push from the institutions. So I think it was a brilliant lecture, sir. We really enjoyed. Thank you so much to NCQM for bringing you and putting you in front of us. Otherwise, I don't think we could have had a beautiful session like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Very much to
Good.
NCQM. Yes.
If I may just come in and respond to Anuradha for a minute. You know, it is rather interesting. I gave the K.R. Narayanan Memorial Foundation in Canberra in Australia 2 years ago. And the title of my talk was about creating inclusive, assured innovation. And it was presided over by the Education Minister of Australia. Okay. And there was a dinner in my honor that was hosted, and he gave a after dinner speech. And he said, Dr. Mashelkar has talked about assured framework in different areas. Let me try to see how it works for our Australian higher education system. And he gave a 10-minute talk on analyzing the Australian education system in the assured framework. Is it affordable? Is it scalable? Is it sustainable? Is it user-friendly? Who is our user? The new student who is cleverer than the teacher because he has access to all the information, etc. So what he said is something that Australia education minister talked about 2 years ago. So my congratulations. Thank you very much.
It could be a part of their vision and mission.
Dr. Banerjee, can I talk?
Sir, I would like to
Sir, I would like to say this is Rajesh Javeri from Bureau Veritas.
जर आता आपण नाही तर त्याच्यावर आपण काहीच नाही वेळ देणार मग नंतर काय माहिती ब्लेम करणार भरपूर येतात
Sir, this was a very wonderful
चेक करा
session.
टाइम
You provided to us information on resilience, and we have ISO standard also available on the resilience. But with respect to the Atmanirbhar, you said very correctly by not saying made in India, but we had to have a same attitude and approach, which can made from 45% of the mobile manufacturing to 7%. Now we need to increase from 7% to 45%. So thank you very much, sir, for providing the insight, and we are sure about it.
Again,
Your
put it on NCQM.
learning
NCQM email.
Thank you. This is Amar Roy.
information
I
to us.
want
Can you
We'll
give
be
me
able
your
to get
learning
more
point?
about it. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Javeri, can you give your learning point? What have you learned from this?
Sir, we learned about the attitude and the approach, what we need to do it in terms of business resilience, which has made us to
Right.
not to down. That's the main thing, sir. Thank you.
Ability to attitude to aptitude. Very good.
Yes, sir.
Anybody else
Thank
would
you.
like to give his what learning point?
Good afternoon. This is Karthik Modi. Can I talk?
May I talk to you? Number one,
This is Karthik Modi. Can I talk?
I have learned from this. Number one is the quality culture. That to have this resilience, and becoming Atmanirbhar, India needs to have a quality culture. Number two, I have learned that creativity and innovation is the most important thing to circumvent any misfortune, any problems we are facing. So resilience, creativity and innovation, and our country has to encourage this creativity and innovation. Third thing I have learned that technology is the order of the day. Everything will depend on technology, and how we can adopt the technology that will determine our ability to meet the challenges of tomorrow. Thank you, sir.
Good. Good. Any other learning points?
Karthik Modi
was trying
speaking.
to speak. Yes, please.
Yeah,
go
yeah,
ahead.
Karthik Modi. First of all, Dr. Mashelkar, I think it was a good session. What I learned is the purpose-driven organization, and in that mission Kurukshetra, and what all things you explained in that. My personal opinion is that this is the starting point where the purpose will determine at individual level, team level, organization level, society level, national level, everywhere. What is the purpose that will drive every one of us? Thank you.
Good. Anybody else?
Yeah, we are from Navneet. There are three learnings what we got from this excellent webinar. One is every day is a change. So there is no substitute for change. We have to move from make in India to the invent in India. So that is another good message what we got it. Last but not least, knowledge has to be actually move from knowledge to the creation. So these are the three big learning what we got.
Good.
Thanks,
Good thing you all learned. Anybody else would like to add before
Sir,
we...
yes. Vasudev sir, may I speak?
Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Payal Shah from Thakur College of Engineering. First, I would like to thank Dr. Mashelkar. It was such an inspiring talk, but my learning has mostly been inspired by the two examples of the two pics that sir has shown. One of that girl from Bihar who had cycled 12 kilometers, that showed me tremendous courage and determination coupled with what is called resilience. The second, again, that of the person from Bihar himself who made that amphibian bicycle. So I again came across the fact that necessity, of course, is the mother of all invention. But then again, that should be coupled by some other factor which came in the 10 tenets. So thank you, sir, so much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Good evening, Dr.
Dr.
Atul Raja.
Moses, I saw Dr. Moses, would you like to add?
Yes, sir, I would like to add. This was a very
Please.
nice learning experience. I could pick up 21 points. The earlier
Okay.
20 were the 10 tenets. They're very important. Then the assured model, yes, all these we would like to apply in our autonomous college. It's a new vision for me. And the last three to make it 20 were ability, attitude, and aptitude. And most
Yes.
important of all, what appealed to me was the why, the question why we are doing this, along with
Right.
that how and what, the
Correct.
purpose driven. Thank you so
Purpose
much. Sir.
driven.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you, Dr.
Very
Hello,
good.
Mashel.
sir.
Purpose driven.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Hello.
Yeah.
Doctor
Atul Raja.
Hello.
Banerjee,
Yeah,
sir,
Vikram.
can I say something? One more important area which Dr. Sir mentioned was, hello? Hello?
Yes, sir. You are audible.
Yeah. One is the component of convex lens. Instead of having a parallel thing, you need is a converging point in the form of a convex lens, which is very crucial because you then convert everything on a focused area by converging using the convex component of life or convex component of action.
Good.
Hello.
Yeah.
That's the
this
point.
Atul Raja.
Yeah, Atul.
Yeah, this is regarding. I learned that this attitude, aptitude, and if you have one component, you cannot survive. You have to have three components to survive in the today's world. And
Right.
what I suggest that in the industry as well as in the academic, there should be one person who can look after the innovation, and that person has to take the ideas from everybody and try to see that how they can put it into the public forum or in their particular forum, so that the ideas cannot go along with the people in their mindset only. It should be publicized.
Okay, I think time is short.
Hello.
Last
Hello.
question. Anybody else?
Hello.
One
Sir, I'm
last learning
Yes,
point.
I'm Dr. Maitri
Hello.
Shah.
Hello.
I am
Okay, Maitri.
Shilpa. May I speak? Yes.
Yes, doctor. Go ahead.
Hello.
Yes. In the beginning, I'd like to congratulate MCQM, that is Mr. Banerjee and Santosh sir. Mashelkar sir, the 10th tenet which you have told, I especially picked up the agility part. In this pandemic, we have been sitting at home doing getting along with our students on an online platform. So what happened is we just sat, and I especially went I used to watch a lot of CNBC and especially the stock. So there I could find the stocks which are going up and stocks which were not doing well, the mid cap sections, the way they were going. So there I found whatever you said today about agility, it was applicable during this pandemic situation in stock exchange. Thank you, sir.
Okay, I think we'll close it because the time is running out. All of you have rightly pointed out the agility and innovation and creativity. You know, even in business excellence models, if you see Ramakrishna Bajaj National Quality Award model, started in 1997, and I've been associated with it right from beginning. The word creativity was there only 9 places. Whereas today, if you see, it is in 90 places. So everywhere they're talking of agility. That is one of the basic core values there. Creativity, innovation, where you have to activate your right brain. I think time is running short, and the 10 tenets I don't want to read out. Adaptability, agility, resilience, thinking on like Dhruva Yammani's case, he talked about scenario-based planning, then purpose-driven sort of thing, the golden circle, what he explained, then platformization, then digital delay, and post-COVID world accelerating to this industry 4 equally to quality 4.0. And then you have to foster self-disruption and then climate considerations from that. So I think you have picked up most of them, and please try to apply them in your respect. This one, this is being recorded in YouTube. You can go through it later along with your colleagues and draw up an action plan for your own organization. Okay, Farooq, go ahead because time is running out. Go ahead, Farooq.
Thank you, Mr. Banerjee, for conducting this session, and I think we got a lot of learnings out of Dr. Mashelkar's talk. May I now request Mr. Santosh Khadagde, our president, to virtually present a memento to our distinguished speaker, Dr. R.A. Mashelkar. And Santosh, you will have to present and show it.
I'm honored to present this shield or trophy, whatever we call, on behalf of the Shah Trust and the National Center for Quality Management.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you
And
very
we
much.
reach this to Dr. Mashelkar in due course. This is a virtual presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Santosh. And now we move on to the second event of the evening, and that is the Bidwell 2020 award ceremony. To just give you a brief,